Imagine for a moment that the very system designed to give you a voice in democracy is being subtly reshaped.
Hmm.
Not by some grand, shadowy conspiracy you'd see in a movie, but by a complex, almost invisible interplay of money, psychology, and, well, the very rules that govern our political parties.
Right, much more insidious in a way.
It really is. It's a question that cuts right to the heart of what we believe democracy truly is and maybe what it's quietly becoming.
Yeah.
Today, July 27, 2025, we're embarking on a critical deep dive. We've got this groundbreaking new report that just landed this past January.
Hmm.
It's titled The Battle for Democratic Choice: Establishment Politics versus Grassroots Democracy in American Elections. And let me tell you, this document, it doesn't pull any punches.
No, it really doesn't.
It takes a hard, unflinching look at voter manipulation, the intricate web of campaign finance, and what it calls the struggle for constitutional governance in the United States.
That phrase itself, constitutional governance, is key.
It is. So our mission today, we're going to try and peel back the layers, understand how these powerful establishment political organizations leverage, well, immense financial power and some pretty sophisticated psychological tactics to influence elections.
And how people are fighting back.
And crucially, yes, explore how grassroots movements are pushing back against this tide. Think of it like getting a behind-the-scenes pass, you know, to see what's really happening on the political stage.
Affecting everything.
Affecting everything from who appears on your ballot to the policies that impact your daily life. It's huge.
What's truly striking about this report, I think, is how strongly it argues that American democracy stands at a critical crossroads.
Right.
It uncovers what it describes as a deeply disturbing pattern where wealthy donors and powerful special interests effectively capture the candidate selection process.
Capture. That's a strong word.
It is, and it often happens long before voters like you even get a chance to cast a ballot. And to make this concrete, the report zeroes in on the Republican Party of Florida, the RPOF. It holds it up as an incredibly insightful case study.
A microcosm, maybe.
Exactly, a microcosm of these very control mechanisms playing out nationally, but you see them really clearly there.
Okay.
By the end of this deep dive, you're going to have a far clearer understanding of the powerful forces at play, the specific techniques used to influence your vote, and maybe most importantly, the fundamental choice that voters really face.
Especially when it comes to who controls local party structures, right?
Precisely. It's about seeing beyond just checking a box on election day. There's so much more going on underneath.
Okay, let's jump right into the core argument then, because it seems like it's the bedrock of this entire report.
Mm-hmm.
It lays out this powerful claim that American democracy has drifted, maybe significantly, from the founders' original vision.
Yeah, that ideal of informed citizen.
Right, that ideal of informed citizens genuinely choosing their representatives based on merit and what the report calls constitutional principles.
Mm-hmm. Meaning things like limited government, individual liberty.
Exactly, and power deriving directly from the people, not from elites or special interests.
Mm.
Instead, the report posits there's this constant, often unseen tug of war.
Between establishment politics and grassroots democracy. Those are the two camps it sets up.
Yeah. And on one side, the report paints this vivid picture of the establishment political machine. And it's not just, you know, a loose collection of people.
No, it's described as a very sophisticated network.
A sophisticated, interconnected network. We're talking PACs, political action committees,
Labor PACs.
super PACs, and what the report calls dark money groups. These entities, it argues, don't just spend money. They deploy psychological manipulation, borrowing heavily from the PR industry.
Right. Techniques refined over decades.
Combined with overwhelming financial resources, their goal, according to this report, is to effectively drown out alternative voices.
Leading to, what's the term they use?
It leads to what it shockingly labels a pseudo-democracy.
Wow. Pseudo-democracy.
Yeah, a system where your choices as a voter are in many ways kind of predetermined.
That's a heavy claim.
It is. And here's a detail that really jumped out at me. The report quotes the former FCC chair, Tom Wheeler.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
He bluntly states, "Unfortunately, you're allowed to lie in political advertising."
Just think about that. You're allowed to lie.
Political ads aren't held to the same truth standards as, say, a car commercial or something.
Which are regulated by the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission. Political ads less so by the FCC in terms of truthfulness.
Right. The report emphasizes this legal loophole is a key enabler of deception. It allows campaigns to operate with a level of falsehood that would be completely unacceptable, illegal even, in commercial ads.
It creates a warped incentive structure, doesn't it?
Totally. And when it comes to dark money, the report highlights specific examples of groups hiding their funding behind these patriotic-sounding names.
Like Americans for Economic Prosperity.
Or Citizens for Responsible Government, names that sound benign, even noble, right?
But they often obscure the real corporate or special interests pulling the strings.
So this isn't just theory, you see. It means the messages you encounter, the ads you see, they might not be what they seem.
Designed to bypass critical thinking.
Exactly, designed to bypass your critical thinking and appeal directly to your emotions or maybe unconscious biases.
So the obvious question then is, how did we get here? How did we get to a point where deception is legally okay and manipulation seems so widespread?
Yeah.
The report argues this isn't some accident, not just a byproduct of a complex system.
No, it calls it deliberate.
It calls it a deliberate, calculated strategy used by the establishment to maintain its grip on power. It even goes back historically.
Right, it cites Edward Bernays.
Edward Bernays, often called the father of public relations, and his book from 1928, Propaganda.
Almost a century ago.
Almost. And Bernays wrote, quite chillingly, "We are governed, our minds are molded, our tastes formed, our ideas suggested largely by men we have never heard of."
Wow, that feels very current.
Incredibly relevant. The report suggests this insight is still highly relevant today as political operatives keep applying these psychological principles to shape public opinion and ultimately voter behavior.
It's like the playbook hasn't changed that much, just the tools.
Exactly. And what's particularly illuminating in this report is its specific focus on the Republican Party of Florida, the RPOF.
A case study.
Yes. It holds up the RPOF as an instructive case study for understanding how these establishment organizations operate in practice. The report details how the RPOF uses mechanisms like Rule 8 endorsement processes.
We'll get into Rule 8, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. And mandatory loyalty oaths. These aren't just dry administrative rules. The report argues they're designed to nudge or maybe even force predetermined candidates onto county Republican executive committees.
The RECs, right?
The RECs. Effectively silencing internal dissent and marginalizing grassroots alternatives that might challenge the establishment's preferred candidates.
So the implication for you, the voter, is pretty significant then.
Huge. When you choose candidates based on this kind of manipulation, whether it's through deceptive ads or this party-level pressure.
You might not even realize it's happening.
Exactly. The report contends you inadvertently end up supporting policies that primarily serve wealthy donors.
Like, give me an example.
Well, think about corporate tax cuts. They're often packaged as universally beneficial economic growth, right?
Yeah, you hear that all the time.
But they might disproportionately benefit large corporations while the impact on small businesses or workers is negligible or even negative. Or trade deals that could lead to job losses for American workers get framed as essential free market policies.
When maybe they're more like what the report calls crony capitalism.
Precisely, where established businesses gain advantages through political connections, not necessarily through fair competition.
And meanwhile, the grassroots candidates.
The ones advocating for, say, constitutional governance, fiscal responsibility, policies prioritizing American workers, they often get dismissed.
Even by their own party structure.
Yes. Dismissed as extremists or unelectable. The system, the report suggests, consistently undermines the democratic ideal this way.
Okay, so let's dig deeper into this establishment political machine itself. Starting with the money. How does the money really talk here?
Right.
This is where it gets truly eye-opening, I thought. The report doesn't just vaguely criticize money in politics.
No, it's very specific.
It meticulously details the intricate architecture of financial control that it argues actively undermines democratic choice. It's multi-layered, designed to maximize elite influence while often hiding the real sources of the cash.
Okay, break it down for us. What are the layers?
The report breaks it down into three main mechanisms. First, you have PACs, political action committees.
The traditional ones?
Right. These are the most regulated.
Yeah.
They accept limited contributions, $5,000 per year from individuals, and their donors are generally disclosed.
But limited.
But because they have these limits, the report points out that PACs are relatively ineffective for the massive, pervasive campaigns we see today.
Right. Not enough firepower.
Exactly. Which leads wealthier donors and special interests to seek out other, less restricted avenues.
Which brings us to...
Mechanism 2. Super PACs. Independent, expenditure-only political committees.
Okay, the big guns.
This is where things really open up. Super PACs can accept unlimited contributions from basically any non-foreign source corporations, unions, individuals, unlimited money in,
And unlimited money out, right?
and they can spend unlimited amounts on what are called independent expenditures to support or oppose candidates. The only legal restriction here is supposed to be no direct coordination with the candidate's campaign.
It's supposed to be.
Yeah, it's supposed to be. The report strongly suggests that this rule is often, if not routinely, circumvented
How so?
through revolving doors, signaling, creating this gray area that allows for highly synchronized messaging without actual direct recorded communication.
Okay, so pick super PACs. What's the third?
Finally, we come to what the report calls the most insidious component: dark money groups.
Dark money. You hear that term a lot. What are they technically?
They typically operate as nonprofit social welfare organizations, like 501c4s or C6s.
Okay.
What makes them insidious, according to the report, is their ability to accept unlimited contributions from any source whatsoever,
Unlimited.
while maintaining complete secrecy about their donors.
Complete secrecy. So you never know who's behind the message.
Never. Imagine an ad trying to sway your vote, maybe attacking a candidate you like or boosting one you don't, and you'll never know who's really paying for it or what their true agenda is.
That's the insidious power right there. It
Yeah.
completely disconnects the message from accountability.
Absolutely. And the report gives powerful examples of these deceptive names: Americans for Economic Prosperity, Citizens for Responsible Government, Families for Freedom.
They sound great. Very positive.
Exactly. They're carefully chosen to sound benevolent and broadly appealing, often masking the corporate or special interest actually funding them, interests which might have agendas directly contrary to what that name implies.
So, stepping back, what does this mean for the larger landscape? How did this become the norm?
Well, the report really points to the Supreme Court's 2010 Citizens United decision.
Citizens United. That's the one.
That's seen by this report as the fundamental turning point that profoundly transformed this whole landscape. That decision essentially removed long-standing restrictions on corporate and union spending in federal elections,
Open the floodgates.
effectively opened the floodgates. The Brennan Center for Justice, which the report cites, observes that big money dominates political campaigns to a degree not seen in decades.
And this isn't just like academic observation, it's real.
No, it's reality, where billionaires,
Yeah.
mega corporations, powerful unions can pour unprecedented amounts of money into campaigns, fundamentally altering the playing field. The report emphasizes how super PACs specifically allow billionaires to pour unlimited amounts into campaigns, drowning out the voices of ordinary Americans.
Like a whisper against a hurricane.
Good analogy.
Yeah.
And dark money groups, by masking the identities of their donors, prevent voters like you from ever truly knowing who's trying to influence your decisions.
The scale is just hard to grasp sometimes.
It's staggering. The report notes congressional races routinely attract tens of millions of dollars. Tens of millions.
Just for one seat.
And it's not just the amount, it's the public perception. Most people already feel the wealthy have way more influence than the rest of us.
Wow, that's a common feeling.
The report basically says, yeah, that's not just a feeling, it's the stark reality created by this system. Financial resources often matter more than principles or grassroots support.
Okay. So they have all this money. How do they actually use it? It can't just be buying TV ads, can it?
No, it's way more sophisticated than that. The report outlines strategies that go beyond just buying airtime. First, as we touched on, is using those deceptively named organizations.
Exploiting trust based on a name.
Exactly. It exploits our natural tendency to support groups that sound like they share our values. You know, Americans for Economic Prosperity might sound like it's about helping the average worker.
But it could be funded by multinationals pushing for tax breaks that actually send jobs overseas.
Precisely. The name is a shield, a carefully constructed facade.
Okay, what else?
Then there's sophisticated targeting. In today's digital age, this is incredibly powerful. Micro-targeting. Digital platforms allow campaigns to use incredibly detailed psychological profiles of individual voters. You.
Me.
Everyone.
Based on our online activity, purchases, social media.
All of it. This lets them deliver different, highly tailored messages to different groups, often operating below the level of conscious awareness, hitting specific emotional or ideological buttons.
And it gives them plausible deniability, too, right?
Exactly. Plausible deniability. If one message gets exposed as false or backfires, they can claim, oh, that was just for a small segment, or we had other messages saying something different.
It's a fragmented, almost contradictory communication strategy.
Designed to hit specific targets without having to maintain a consistent, truthful public stance. It's slippery.
And what about that coordination issue you mentioned with super PACs? They're supposed to be independent.
It's supposed to be. But the report notes this restriction is routinely circumvented.
How? Like, how does that work in practice?
Well, often it's through former campaign operatives moving seamlessly between a candidate's official campaign and a supporting super PIC. They bring intimate knowledge, strategy, messaging, opponent weaknesses.
So the wall isn't really a wall.
Not a very solid one.
Huh.
Or candidates themselves can subtly signal preferences through public statements, maybe a strategically placed tweet, leaked info,
Yeah.
effectively guiding these independent groups without a direct order.
And the FEC, the Federal Election Commission, they're supposed to police this.
They are, but the report highlights the FEC is largely ineffective. It cites structural problems and partisan gridlock that basically allow these massive spending campaigns to operate with the appearance of independence, even when the coordination seems pretty obvious to observers.
So the system allows this, maybe even encourages it.
Seems that way.
Yeah.
And the impact on democratic choice is profound, pervasive. It starts right at candidate recruitment. Party leaders and big money donors often work together to identify and back candidates they know will serve elite interests, not necessarily the grassroots concerns of ordinary citizens.
So the choices you get on the ballot might already be pre-screened for donor friendliness.
That's the implication. The report cites research by Michael Miller from Barnard College showing county party chairs have different preferences than primary voters and party activists. They worry about electability, local ties, sometimes even demographics, acting as gatekeepers.
Gatekeepers?
And then there are the sheer financial barriers. Modern campaigns cost so much.
So grassroots candidates, they're just priced out.
Often, yes. Those without access to wealthy donors or special interest funding are at a massive disadvantage. The report is blunt. Money often determines outcomes, regardless of a candidate's principles or how well they represent voters.
It's not just the money itself, though, is it? There's a psychological effect.
Absolutely. The report emphasizes this. The constant barrage of establishment advertising, the sheer volume, creates an impression of legitimacy and electability.
Just by being everywhere.
Right. It operates almost below conscious awareness. Repetition, emotional associations, social proof. It makes candidates seem more qualified, electable, and mainstream just because their message is ubiquitous, even if it's vague or deceptive.
And the flip side, how are grassroots candidates portrayed?
They get framed, meticulously framed by establishment messaging, often amplified by the media they influence, as extreme, unelectable, or dangerous.
Well, the establishment candidates are the moderate, experienced, pragmatic ones.
Exactly. It's a narrative constantly reinforced across multiple platforms, creating this powerful echo chamber that's hard for voters to escape.
And this leads to, what did the report call it? Corruption.
It suggests this leads to a systematic corruption of institutions. Maybe not illegal bribery, but elected officials becoming far more responsive to wealthy donors than to the voters who elected them.
Because the donors funded their election or might fund the next one.
Precisely. Studies cited in the report consistently show wealthy donors have disproportionate influence over policy outcomes,
Leading to policies that benefit elites.
at the expense of ordinary Americans,
Mm-hmm.
like those corporate tax cuts or trade deals we mentioned. It's a tangible shift in who the system actually serves.
Wow. Okay, so we've got the money, the structure. What about the direct psychological tactics? How does that work on, us?
Right. What does this all mean for your mind, for how you process information and make decisions? The report delves deep into how sophisticated psychological manipulation systematically deceives voters.
And it's legal.
And it's surprising because it operates within a legal framework that actually permits this deception.
That's wild.
The report traces the roots back to Edward Bernays. We mentioned him earlier.
Freud's nephew.
Freud's nephew, yeah.
Hmm.
He pioneered applying psychological principles to mass persuasion way back in the early 20th century.
Linking cigarettes to women's lib. Things like that.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Connecting products or ideas to deeper, often unconscious desires and associations. He fundamentally understood how to shape public opinion.
And his book, Propaganda.
From 1928. In it, he articulated this vision that feels incredibly prophetic today. We are governed, our minds are molded, our tastes formed, our ideas suggested largely by men we have never heard of.
Chilling. Captures modern manipulation perfectly.
It really does. You might think you're making an independent choice, but you could be responding to carefully orchestrated campaigns serving unseen interests.
And the legal angle is what really gets me. The fact that lying is permissible.
Yeah, that quote from former FCC Chair Tom Wheeler again. Unfortunately, you're allowed to lie in political advertising.
Such a critical distinction the report emphasizes. Unlike commercial ads, regulated by the FTC for truthfulness.
Political ads aren't held to the same standard by the FCC. Courts have repeatedly upheld broad First Amendment rights for candidates. They can say what they want on broadcast channels.
Even if it's blatantly false, stations can't reject it.
Astonishingly, no. Local stations cannot reject blatantly false political ads from qualified candidates.
That creates a perverse incentive, doesn't it? Rewards deception over honest discussion.
Totally. It means campaigns are incentivized towards manipulation rather than presenting facts. And you, the voter, are exposed to outright false information without the regulatory protection you'd expect elsewhere.
So how do they actually do it? What are the techniques?
Well, the report explains they don't just guess. They use a sophisticated understanding of cognitive psychology, behavioral economics.
Exploiting our mental shortcuts, our emotional responses.
Exactly, often operating below the level of conscious awareness. One of the most fundamental techniques is leveraging cognitive dissonance.
That uncomfortable feeling when you hold conflicting beliefs.
Right, that tension. Political operatives deliberately create this discomfort by presenting complex issues in simplified, often binary us versus them terms.
Forcing you to pick a side, a simple narrative.
Yeah, forcing you to choose narratives rather than engaging with the nuance and complexity of real issues. Dr. Lisa Emina Jean-Maitre, referenced in the report, notes propaganda exploits psychological principles by tapping into cognitive dissonance and resolving it through simple narratives.
What else? What are some other specific techniques?
Okay, the report lists several. Bandwagon effect. Encouraging support because everyone else is doing it. You hear phrases like, join the millions supporting this candidate.
Treating perceived momentum.
Then there's cherry picking, presenting only selective evidence, ignoring contradictory data. Campaigns tout benefits while conveniently omitting risks or downsides.
Classic PR tactic.
We also see ad hominem attacks, discrediting opponents personally rather than debating their arguments, attack character to distract from policy.
Get things into the mud.
And then there's repetition and general statements. This exploits the principle that familiar messages feel truer. Campaigns endlessly repeat vague concepts, loaded words like hope, joy, change, greatness.
Positive emotional associations without specific meaning.
Exactly, embedding those feelings without any real policy content. If you pay attention to political messaging, you'll recognize these tactics instantly. They are absolutely everywhere.
And what about the more extreme stuff, like dehumanizing opponents?
The report highlights the increasing use of dehumanization. This involves portraying political opponents as less than human.
Calling them bots, trolls, zombies.
Right. The purpose is to deny their agency, their humanity, making it easier for supporters to dismiss their concerns, their perspectives.
And ultimately justify harsher treatment or policies against them.
It's incredibly dangerous. It undermines the fundamental democratic principle of respect for all citizens, even those you disagree with. Transforms political disagreement into a battle against an inhuman enemy.
Chilling. And the media's role in all this?
Pervasive. The report points out that the effectiveness of these campaigns depends heavily on the media amplifying them. It quotes Herman and Chomsky's manufacturing consent,
suggesting the media often serves elite interests.
By controlling what stories get told, how they're framed, which experts get a platform, stories can be exaggerated or downplayed based on corporate interests, political affiliations, advertising budgets.
Creating a distorted information environment?
Exactly. This extends to linguistic manipulation, too. Carefully crafted language subtly alters perceptions. Words chosen for connotation, not just denotation, emphasizing some aspects, downplaying others, all to steer opinion.
And technology has just thrown gasoline on this fire, hasn't it?
Supercharged it entirely.
Yes.
We're talking micro-targeting and social media bots.
The bots are everywhere.
Digital platforms allow campaigns to micro-target individuals based on incredibly detailed psychological profiles, delivering customized messages designed to exploit your specific fears, desires, biases, often without you realizing it.
And the bot networks create fake support or opposition.
Yeah, artificial impressions of support or opposition, making fringe positions seem mainstream or drowning out genuine grassroots voices. It distorts the public discourse, making it hard to tell real sentiment from manufactured noise.
Plus the algorithms controlling what we see.
Algorithmic curation. The algorithms governing social media feeds, news feeds, search results, they control information flow, creating filter bubbles, echo chambers.
Reinforcing biases, limiting exposure to different views.
Makes it harder to engage in genuine critical thinking or informed debate. It walls you off.
So looking at the big picture, this systematic manipulation, it degrades everything, doesn't it?
Fundamentally degrades democratic discourse. It replaces genuine debate with emotional appeals, tribal conflicts, making it incredibly difficult for citizens to have rational discussions about complex issues.
Like we're being trained to react emotionally, not analytically.
The report suggests exactly that, but it also offers a defense. Referencing Dr. Jean Maitre again, it talks about information hygiene.
Information hygiene, what does that mean?
It's not about avoiding information, it's about active engagement. Holding on to logic, relentlessly questioning narratives, seeking original sources, comparing multiple viewpoints, critically engaging with all information, not just passively accepting it,
Recognizing the manipulation techniques when you see them.
and actively working to counter their effects in your own mind. It's an essential skill set for today.
Absolutely essential. Okay, so let's make this concrete. Let's look at that case study. The Republican Party of Florida. How do they apply these control mechanisms?
Okay, let's dive into this core case study because it brings all these theoretical points right down to earth. The report highlights the RPOF as a prime example of how establishment organizations maintain tight control over candidate selection using specific institutional mechanisms.
And this ties directly into questions people might have about their own local parties, right? Like in St. Johns County, maybe?
Yeah, exactly, like right here in St. Johns County or anywhere else.
Mhm.
The report lays out that the RPOF operates through a complex system of rules and procedures expressly designed to concentrate power with party leadership,
Which limits grassroots influence.
severely limits the ability of grassroots activists, even ordinary party members, to influence who gets to run and what policies the party pursues. It creates a system where, despite the appearance of participation, real decision-making is highly centralized.
So what's the architecture of this control? What are the key rules?
Well, the report focuses heavily on Rule 8 of the Party Rules of Procedure.
Rule 8, okay.
This rule allows the state committee and the county executive committees, the RECs, to endorse, certify, screen, or recommend candidates
In primaries too? Or just general elections?
in contested primaries or even in nonpartisan elections where a registered Republican is running, provided certain conditions are met.
And the report suggests its purpose has shifted over time.
Yeah, it acknowledges Rule 8 might have originated for a different reason, maybe to prevent, say, former KKK members, who were often Democrats back then, from just switching parties and running as Republicans. Sort of a gatekeeping function.
But its modern application?
Its modern application, the report contends, primarily serves to maintain establishment control. It's a tool to shape the ballot before it reaches you, the voter, ensuring that candidates favored by leadership, often tied to big money, get the party's official stamp of approval.
And there's more than just Rule 8, right? The report mentioned Rule 23.
Yes, exactly. The report points to RPOF Rule 23 and what's known as the Reclaim Campaign as additional tactics.
What do those do?
Well, the report notes that Rule 23 has been used to target and even attempt to remove members of local RECs. Specifically mentions places like St. Johns County
Target members for what?
for participating in or supporting other Republican organizations like the Liberty Caucus or the Republican Assembly, groups that often seek to support grassroots, America First type candidates over the party picks, seen as tied to corporate pays, lobbyists, and dark money donors.
Wow, so it's about enforcing conformity within the party ranks.
That's what the report argues. It's presented as another layer of institutional control designed to stifle internal dissent and prevent grassroots voices from gaining traction within the party structure itself.
And then there's the loyalty oath. That sounds pretty significant.
Oh, it's huge. This is where it gets really impactful for local committee members, maybe people you know. The report meticulously details a party loyalty oath required of every single REC member in Florida. Mandatory.
What does it make them swear?
It contains specific, incredibly restrictive prohibitions. Members must swear they will not actively, publicly, or financially support the election of any candidate seeking election against the Republican nominee or registered Republicans in nonpartisan races. Okay, maybe that part seems standard.
But the primary part is key, right?
Exactly. Here's the crucial part for primaries. In a contested Republican primary, members explicitly swear they will not support the nomination of one Republican candidate over another in my capacity as a Republican Executive Committee member unless the Executive Committee has voted to endorse that candidate in accordance with RPOF Rule 8.
So unless the leadership invokes Rule 8 for their candidate, everyone else has to stay silent.
That's the power. The report argues this oath creates an incredibly potent mechanism to enforce establishment control. It effectively silences committee members who might genuinely prefer grassroots candidates, maybe someone truly committed to conservative principles or America First policies, unless the leadership decides to use Rule 8 for their own preferred choice.
Stifles internal dissent, prevents real debate.
Fundamentally. Now, there is a limited exception mentioned. Members can support a personal Republican candidate of choice in a primary.
Okay, so there's a loophole.
Sort of.
Mm-hmm.
Provided they do not express such support with a public reference to my title or office within the Republican Party of Florida.
Which means?
The report notes this is largely meaningless for active officials. Their effectiveness, their influence, relies precisely on their official positions. So the exception is practically useless for anyone trying to actually make a difference within the party structure.
Right, it neuters their influence. Okay, so back to Rule 8. How does it work in practice to actually disadvantage grassroots candidates?
Well, the report outlines procedural requirements that, on the surface seem fair.
Like giving notice, letting candidates speak.
Exactly. Requires at least 10 days written notice to REC members and announce candidates before an endorsement vote, and candidates are allowed to speak. Seems okay. But the report implies these procedures, while appearing transparent, actually advantage establishment candidates. Because establishment candidates often have advanced knowledge through their connections within party leadership. They know it's coming. Grassroots candidates might get the minimum 10 days notice, giving them very little time to prepare an effective presentation, mobilize their supporters, or counter the narrative already forming around the leadership's favor.
Stacks the deck procedurally.
And securing an endorsement through Rule 8 is deliberately difficult. It requires a significant supermajority vote, like 60% or even 2/3, depending on the quorum.
Making it hard for grassroots candidates to get that official nod, even if they have substantial support.
Exactly. Even if a simple majority of local party members support a grassroots candidate, a smaller, unified establishment bloc can block the endorsement, effectively maintaining control.
And there's disagreement within the RPOF itself about using Rule 8.
Huge disagreement. The report highlights this fundamental tension. On one side, you have the activist approach, pro-establishment.
They like Rule 8.
They embrace it. Use it to back the strongest Republican candidate, meaning the one most likely to win, in their view. Prioritizing electability.
Which often means establishment figures with name recognition, money.
Even if their principles are maybe less aligned with the base. The report mentions Volusia County's REC endorsing a whole slew of candidates in 2022, which caused huge controversy, even legal challenges.
Okay, so that's one side. What's the other?
The other side is the traditionalist approach, pro-grassroots. They view Rule 8 as undermining GOP voters. Their question is simple. Why not let the voters decide?
Let the primary voters choose.
Right. They see Rule 8 as appropriate only in truly rare circumstances. Like if a candidate faces serious criminal charges, basically, for disqualifying someone truly unfit, not for picking winners among Republicans.
Their view is the REC should support all Republicans in the general, unless there's a major issue resolved by Rule 8.
Exactly. It's a vision where the party facilitates the primary process rather than controlling its outcome.
And does the report show this having real-world consequences? Does this RPOF system actually affect election outcomes?
Well, absolutely. The report points to the Seminole County School Board example in 2022 as a stark illustration.
What happened there?
The Seminole REC chose not to invoke Rule 8, even though Governor DeSantis' office reportedly advised endorsing specific conservative candidates.
Okay, so they didn't endorse anyone.
Right. And the consequence? Votes got split among the various GOP candidates running. And ultimately, left-wing candidates ended up taking the 3 seats up for re-election.
Wow. So the lack of unified backing hurt them.
Precisely. The analysis in the report highlights how the loyalty oath silenced individual REC members who might have wanted to publicly back a specific conservative. And because the RPOF didn't issue an official endorsement, conservative voters were left without clear guidance, leading to a fragmented vote that actually harmed conservative interests.
So using Rule 8 can be controversial, but not using it can also backfire if the goal is electing certain candidates.
Exactly. The report emphasizes that applying Rule 8 will likely cause a severing of ties and is often steeped in controversy, precisely because it reflects the illegitimacy of systems that concentrate power in the hands of party elites instead of letting voters decide.
So zooming out again, this RPOF example.
Yeah.
It's not just Florida, is it?
Not at all. The report presents the RPOF's mechanisms as part of a broader pattern of elite control found in party organizations nationwide.
Loyalty oaths, endorsement processes, maybe things like that, Rule 23.
Exactly. Institutional barriers designed to concentrate power. And this concentration, in turn, makes it much easier for big money to influence candidate selection and policy.
Through targeted lobbying, campaign contributions.
Right, targeting those centralized party structures where decisions are made. The report argues that party organizations, in this scenario, become intermediaries.
Translating elite preferences into outcomes.
Yes, translating the desires of wealthy donors and special interests into electoral outcomes, all while maintaining the appearance of democratic participation. You vote, but the choices might already be curated.
And the constitutional implications of all this, especially the loyalty oaths.
The report raises serious questions there, particularly about compelled speech.
Forcing party members to stay silent or not support their preferred candidate.
Right. Forcing them to swear they won't support certain candidates or restricting their ability to use their official titles. It may violate First Amendment protections for political expression and association, creates a chilling effect on internal party debate.
And undermines the whole idea of consent of the governed.
Fundamentally, by systematically suppressing grassroots voices and manipulating candidate selection, these mechanisms, the report argues, undermine that core principle. When parties become gatekeepers for elite interests instead of conduits for the people's will, the very spirit of democratic governance is violated.
So even if it's legal,
Even if it operates within the letter of the law, the report concludes it fundamentally violates the spirit of democratic governance. It's a really stark assessment.
okay, that's a pretty bleak picture of establishment control. But the report offers an alternative, right? The grassroots side.
It does. Let's explore the report's proposed alternative, because it offers a stark contrast to that establishment machine we've just unpacked.
Okay.
In opposition to the big money and psychological tactics, the report points to grassroots democracy. It specifically highlights movements like Make America Great Again or MAGA and America First as a vital return to constitutional principles.
So what are those core principles according to the report?
Prioritizing authentic representation, genuine constitutional governance, and citizen empowerment. This stands in direct opposition to elite manipulation and financial dominance. For these movements, legitimate political power derives directly from the consent of the governed,
Not from bank accounts.
not from the size of one's bank account or financial resources. The report explains they aim to build power differently, too, through local organizing, education, persuasion, direct community involvement.
Bottom up, not top down.
Exactly. A fundamentally different approach than relying on psychological manipulation and overwhelming big money advertising favored by the establishment. And crucially, they emphasize constitutional principles and limited government as essential safeguards against the concentration of power that characterizes establishment politics.
Using the structure itself to prevent corruption.
That's the idea, a focus on structure and principle.
And how does this translate into actual policy? Does the report connect it to specific platforms?
It does. It highlights the America First Policy Institute, or AFPI, and how it translates these broad principles into a specific, actionable policy framework.
What are some of those guiding principles?
Okay, the report highlights several. First, a strong emphasis on liberty, not just a buzzword, but a commitment to constitutional rights and individual freedom as the foundation.
Contrasting with the establishment sacrificing liberty for convenience or profit.
That's the contrast drawn. Second, the principle of free enterprise. But the report clarifies this means advocating for genuine free markets, not the crony capitalism we talked about, where established businesses get unfair advantages through political connections.
So focused on small business, working families.
That's the implication. Third, national greatness. This underscores a commitment to American sovereignty and independence, prioritizing American interests above international approval or global institutions.
A challenge to a more globalist mindset.
Right. And finally, a commitment to American military superiority, but focusing on strength and deterrence to protect American interests, explicitly avoiding costly, often counterproductive foreign interventions.
Interventions that might serve elite interests more than national security.
That's the suggestion, that they serve defense contractors or global elites, not necessarily American security.
So how do these grassroots movements actually build support differently, if not through mass advertising and manipulation?
It's a direct contrast. The report emphasizes local engagement and community building as the absolute foundation. It quotes Tim Chapman of Heritage Action for America.
Oh yeah, Heritage Action is often cited as an example of this.
Right. Chapman observes that policy progress depends on the grassroots, and local energy drives political and policy victories. It's a bottom-up approach, building sustainable movements through direct engagement, education, persuasion in local communities.
Not just parachuting in consultants before an election.
Exactly. The report also highlights building a permanent infrastructure, not temporary campaign offices that vanish.
Something lasting.
Creating a constant on-the-ground presence in local communities that maintains engagement between elections. Chapman calls this a constant source of pressure that lawmakers can't ignore, ensuring accountability, sustained advocacy.
Which is fundamentally different from treating voters as passive consumers of ads.
Totally. It's about empowering people to become active participants, not just recipients of messaging.
But how effective can this really be, facing the establishment's money and media power?
That's the key question. The report suggests a significant advantage for grassroots movements lies in their inherent alignment with constitutional principles and core American values.
Values that resonate naturally with people.
Right. Values that resonate with ordinary citizens, whereas establishment positions often require extensive manipulation to get even temporary public support.
Any evidence for that?
Well, the report cites Heritage Action findings showing voters overwhelmingly see a national emergency over immigration, reject single-payer health care, oppose political correctness, and support capitalism over socialism. It argues this shows a clear alignment between many grassroots conservative positions and broader majority opinion.
So the message itself has power.
And the report offers success stories. Heritage Action, for example, is noted for having built an army of activists that held lawmakers accountable during the Obama years, contributing to a more conservative agenda under President Trump.
So what are the keys to that success, according to the report?
Consistent engagement, authenticity, transparency over mere professional polish, and fierce independence from big money donors. These qualities, the report argues, build trust and a deeper connection with voters that money alone simply cannot buy.
But it can't be easy. What are the challenges they face?
Significant challenges. The report acknowledges that grassroots movements face major headwinds from establishment opposition trying to marginalize them.
Like media bias.
Exactly. Media manipulation is a big one. Establishment-controlled media consistently portray grassroots candidates and positions as extreme, unelectable, or dangerous, while painting establishment alternatives as moderate, experienced, pragmatic, creates artificial barriers.
And the money difference is still huge.
The sheer financial pressure. Superior resources allow the establishment to overwhelm grassroots messaging. The volume alone can drown out alternatives and create psychological pressure to conform.
And then there's trying to co-opt them.
Yes, institutional capture. A more insidious challenge. Efforts to co-opt grassroots energy, maybe recruiting leaders into establishment groups, or creating astroturf organizations.
Fake grassroots groups.
Fake grassroots groups that mimic authentic movements but secretly serve elite interests. Tactics designed to neutralize genuine grassroots power.
So despite those challenges, what's the long-term vision for grassroots victory, according to this report?
It emphasizes a long-term perspective. It's not about quick wins. It means investing years, maybe decades, in building organizational capacity and a robust cultural foundation.
Patience and persistence.
And crucially, focusing on education over manipulation. Engaging voters as rational citizens capable of understanding complex issues and making informed decisions.
Treating them with respect, basically.
Instead of treating them as passive consumers of messaging. It's harder, takes longer, but the report argues it produces more sustainable and legitimate outcomes.
And staying true to principles.
An unwavering commitment to constitutional principles and authenticity. Maintaining independence, sticking to core principles, even when compromises seem expedient. Their credibility depends on it.
Okay. Let's see some more real-world examples. How does this play out on the ground?
Right. This is where the theory really comes to life, seeing these tactics in action through the specific case studies in the report. They bring it all down to ground level.
Okay, give us one. What's a fascinating example?
How about the Kari Lake deception campaign from the 2022 Arizona governor's race?
Ah, yes. That one was something.
It powerfully illustrates how a candidate can use legally permissible lies with surprisingly minimal spending, yet achieve widespread impact. The report details her introductory ad.
The one where she says you're watching fake news.
Exactly. Falsely claiming if you're watching this ad right now, it means you're in the middle of watching a fake news program. You know how to know it's fake, because they won't even cover the biggest story out there, the rigged election of 2020.
And she didn't even spend much on it.
Remarkably little. Only about $5,000 on local broadcast buys, aired just 13 times locally.
But everyone heard about it.
Exactly. Despite minimal investment, the ad generated extensive media coverage and social media discussion, amplifying its reach massively.
So what are the takeaways there?
Key takeaways, per the report. First, the legal permission to lie in political ads means no consequences for falsehoods. Second, minimal spending can have huge psychological impact if it hits emotional triggers and biases. And third, the media often amplifies controversial content, regardless of truth, incentivizing deception.
Shows even anti-establishment figures can use these tactics.
Absolutely. Now, contrast that with the misled suburban voter. This one might resonate with a lot of listeners.
Okay.
The report introduces Sarah, a busy working mother in Orange County, Florida, represents millions who don't have time for deep dives on every candidate. She relies on mailers, TV ads.
Making her vulnerable to manipulation.
Right. So, 2022 election. An establishment congressional candidate, backed heavily by super PACs, pharma money, defense contractor money, spends over $2 million.
$2 million.
On glossy professional ads. Vague messaging, fighting for families, bringing people together, professionally shot, but light on specific policy.
And the Grassroots opponent.
A grassroots conservative candidate could only afford about $50,000. Focused on radio, social media, with detailed policy positions.
Huge disparities. So what happened?
Sarah, influenced by the sheer volume and professional quality of the establishment ads, voted for him. Later, she discovered he voted for legislation that increased her prescription drug costs and gave massive tax strikes to the very pharma companies funding his campaign.
Ouch. So presentation and frequency misled her.
Exactly. Misled a well-intentioned, busy voter.
Okay, what about that internal party control, the loyalty oath trap?
Good example. The party loyalty trap. The report introduces Bob, a knowledgeable REC member in Pinellas County, Florida.
Yeah.
Bob preferred a grassroots conservative candidate in a 2022 primary. This candidate had a strong record, understood the Constitution, policies aligned with Bob's values. But Bob was bound by that RPOF party loyalty oath. And then the RPOF invoked Rule 8 to officially endorse an establishment candidate.
One backed by corporate PACs, moderate record.
Exactly. Corporate PAC backing, lobbyists, more moderate voting record, supported increased spending.
So what could Bob do?
The loyalty oath meant Bob was forced to remain silent. Couldn't publicly support his preferred candidate or criticize the official endorsement even though he knew better. The grassroots candidate lost, partly because other voters saw the official party endorsement and assumed that meant he was the better conservative choice.
Shows how these internal rules silence grassroots voices and amplify the establishment.
Directly. Then there's the dark money deception. This illustrates the secrecy angle we talked about.
Okay.
Maria, a small business owner in Miami-Dade, received tons of campaign materials from Americans for Economic Prosperity.
That name again?
Supporting a candidate for state senate, emphasizing small business support, job creation stuff that resonated with Maria. This group spent over $500,000 on targeted ads, created an overwhelming impression of support.
So Maria voted for the candidate.
She did, only to discover later that Americans for Economic Prosperity was funded mainly by out-of-state corporations seeking regulatory relief and tax advantages that actually harm small businesses like hers.
And the candidate's votes reflected the donors, not the message.
His first major vote was for legislation giving tax breaks to large corporations while eliminating small business tax credits Maria relied on. A direct example, the report says, of how dark money groups manipulate voters into supporting candidates who serve wealthy donors, not them.
Just brutal. What about the media's role in a specific race?
Look at the media manipulation effect from the 2020 VA7 congressional race.
What happened there?
Establishment incumbent, corporate PAC backing, moderate record favoring corporate interests versus a grassroots challenger with a strong constitutional background.
And the media coverage?
Local media consistently portrayed the incumbent as experienced, pragmatic, electable, the challenger, inexperienced, extreme, divisive.
Even if the challenger's background was strong.
Despite the challenger's strong background, media focused on personality conflicts, not policy substance. Editorials favor the incumbent based on electability, dismiss the challenger's rigid ideology, even though polling showed the challenger's positions were actually more popular with district voters.
So the media narrative overrode reality.
Many conservative voters ended up supporting the incumbent based on these media-created impressions, not accurate info. Highlights how media bias can distort voter perceptions and outcomes.
And finally, the AstroTurf example, the fake grassroots.
Right, the AstroTurf organization. The report cites Florida Families First, emerging in 2022. Presented itself as nonpartisan, grassroots, dedicated to family values.
Doing all the grassroots things, canvassing, phone banking.
Extensive door-to-door canvassing, phone banking, social media with testimonials from ordinary families. Looked completely genuine.
But it wasn't.
Investigation revealed its hidden agenda, funded primarily by corporate donors whose interests often conflicted with family values. Operations were paid staff, not volunteers. Testimonials often from people with financial ties to donors.
A professionally manufactured campaign.
Designed purely to create an artificial impression of grassroots support for establishment candidates. Successfully influenced voters who thought they were backing a real community movement. Highlights the challenge of telling authentic from fake.
So across all these cases, what's the pattern?
A consistent pattern emerges. The report concludes these examples reveal systematic deception characterizing establishment manipulation.
What are the common threads?
Professional presentation, creating artificial credibility, deceptive messaging exploiting values to serve contrary interests, overwhelming financial dominance drowning out authentic voices, pervasive media manipulation shaping perception, and insidious institutional mechanisms like in the RPOF suppressing dissent and forcing outcomes.
And the cumulative effect.
The creation of that pseudo-democracy, where the appearance of choice masks the reality of elite control. It's not about what the people want, it's about what the powerful ensure is presented as the only viable option.
Wow. So after all that, what's the path forward? How do we restore genuine democratic choice?
Okay, so given everything we've unpacked, this really stark picture of sophisticated manipulation and control, what does the report suggest is the path forward?
Is there hope?
It emphasizes that restoring authentic democracy requires sustained grassroots organizing and critically comprehensive voter education. It's about building up the people's capacity to see through the smoke and mirrors.
So how can you, the listener, arm yourself against these tactics? What does the report say?
It stresses the importance of voter education and information hygiene.
That term again, what does it mean in practice?
Developing critical thinking skills, recognizing manipulation, consistently questioning narratives, actively seeking out original sources, not just summaries, comparing different viewpoints, engaging critically with all information you consume.
Not just passively accepting headlines or ads.
Right. It specifically recommends understanding the techniques, recognizing bandwagon effects, cherry-picking, ad hominem attacks, repetition, dehumanization. By identifying them, you can resist their psychological impact.
And knowing the basics, like the Constitution.
Absolutely. Emphasizes the importance of constitutional knowledge, understanding limitations, enumerated powers, federalism, individual rights. This foundation lets you evaluate candidates and policies against enduring principles, not just fleeting narratives.
Okay, so educate yourself. What about action, your vote?
The report argues restoring democratic choice fundamentally requires you to actively support authentic grassroots candidates.
How do you identify them?
Do your homework. Research their funding sources, small donors versus corporate PACs, lobbyists, dark money. Look for consistent policy positions rooted in principle. Assess their independence from establishment organizations. This helps see past the gloss.
And support means more than just voting.
Way more. Support through financial contributions, even small ones matter, volunteering time, using your social networks to amplify their message, and engaging in ongoing political activity to hold them accountable after they're elected.
So individual action is key. But what about the system itself? Does it need fixing?
Definitely. It's not just individual action. The report emphasizes building permanent organizing infrastructure.
Local groups?
Local organizations are the absolute foundation for political education, candidate recruitment, voter registration, ongoing accountability. They create sustained pressure lawmakers can't ignore.
And communication, countering the media narrative.
Building effective communication networks to coordinate activities, amplify grassroots voices, offer a credible alternative to biased establishment media, plus educational programs focused on constitutional principles, history, civic responsibilities, practical political skills, equipping citizens to participate effectively.
Okay, but what about the big rules? Campaign finance, party rules.
The report calls for major systemic changes. First, campaign finance reform.
Like what specifically?
Stricter limits on corporate union spending. Clear disclosure requirements for all political spending, no more dark money, exploring public financing options so good candidates can run without special interest cash.
And reforming the parties themselves, like the RPOF.
Crucial. Institutional reform within political parties. Specifically mentioning the RPOF, it calls for eliminating mandatory loyalty oaths, reducing leadership control over candidate selection, getting rid of mechanisms like Rule 8 and that Rule 23 used to pressure local committees, like in St. Johns County, ensuring endorsements serve the grassroots, not elites.
What other big reforms?
Redistricting reform against gerrymandering, primary election reform to reduce party control, media ownership reform against concentration, lobbying reform, big stuff.
Even constitutional amendments.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
For fundamental issues like corporate personhood, unlimited political spending, federal overreach, tackling the root causes.
And what about technology and culture?
The report touches on the dual nature of technology. While it enables manipulation, it also offers powerful tools for authentic organizing. The key is maintaining human agency, genuine relationships.
Not letting algorithms replace engagement.
Exactly. And beneath all this, the report argues for a profound cultural and spiritual renewal.
Reviving civic virtues. Honesty, integrity.
Yes. Virtues essential for democratic governance. These can't be legislated. They must be cultivated within society. Strengthening community institutions, families, churches, civic groups, local businesses as mediating forces.
And education's role.
Vital. Schools teaching constitutional principles, history, civic responsibilities, restoring parental authority, building informed, virtuous citizens.
Okay, so wrapping this all up, what's the final takeaway from the report?
Let's synthesize this. The report presents a stark, undeniable choice for you, the American voter.
The bottom line is,
The report concludes that establishment politics systematically uses sophisticated manipulation, vast sums of money, media control, and institutional capture like the RPOF's methods, all designed to deceive voters and concentrate power.
while the alternative.
Conversely, the MBA and America First movements, as described in the report, offer a constitutional alternative focused on fiscal responsibility, serving American workers, and genuine representation.
So what are the absolute key findings we should remember?
Okay, critical findings summarized. Establishment manipulation is systematic, sophisticated, often operates within legal frameworks permitting deception. Big money drowns out grassroots voices, creates artificial impressions. Party control mechanisms, like those in the RPOF, suppress democratic choice by forcing candidates and silencing dissent. Voters are systematically misled, leading to a pseudo-democracy. But grassroots democracy offers a genuine constitutional alternative, capable of overcoming financial disadvantages through authentic engagement.
Okay. And the recommendations for the listener.
For you, clear guidance, practice information hygiene, constantly question, seek sources, research candidate funding, follow the money, support authentic grassroots candidates, engage in ongoing political activity, not just on election day, and prioritize constitutional principles over appearances or slick advertising.
And for systemic change.
Campaign finance reform. Institutional reform within parties fixing things like RPOS Rule 8, Rule 23, loyalty oaths, media reform, educational reform, and maybe even constitutional amendments for the deep-seated problems.
That's a lot.
It is. The report ends with a powerful, almost urgent declaration. The choice between establishment manipulation and grassroots democracy is ultimately a choice between oligarchy and republic, between elite control and constitutional governance, between serving wealthy donors and serving the American people.
Stark choice indeed.
Doesn't get much clearer than that. So as you go about your day, maybe consider this. In an age of sophisticated information warfare, how will you ensure your choices at the ballot box truly reflect your informed will, and not the carefully constructed narratives of unseen forces?
What specific steps will you take?
Yeah, what specific steps will you take to practice information hygiene and support genuine democratic choice? Something to think about.